And photographer entering Dearborn.
I still haven't seen a felony committed. I still haven't seen a crime committed.
Only on 7 tonight, new images of a tense situation caught on camera. A gunman and photographer entering Dearborn Police Headquarters in February as they say, quote, to audit open carry laws. Those two men are now facing felony charges. As 7 Action News reporter Matthew Smith tells us, their attorney says they've done nothing wrong.
It doesn't show my clients breaking any law. Certainly not felony firearm laws, certainly not felony resisting arrest.
Attorney Nicholas Somber says he's confident Dearborn police don't have a case against his client.
Dude, put that on the ground. Put it on the ground.
This original video went viral. Now new surveillance video shows the two activists entering the Dearborn police station. Somber's client, Brandon Vreeland, is in the black videotaping. The other man, James Baker, is seen here in an escalating situation with police.
You know, you see him with his hand trying to very carefully, you have a bunch of guys aiming at you and, he puts his weapon down and complies.
The pair showed up to file a report because they were stopped early in the day while wearing masks, bulletproof vests, and open carrying guns. They were allowed to leave without charges, but they didn't think they should have been stopped, which leads us back to this standoff.
What would somebody at a restaurant do if those people that invaded the police station here on that Sunday came in there while you were having dinner with your family?
Last month, Dearborn's chief of police said he doesn't think the men's actions were legal. Now that the two men are facing numerous felonies, including resisting arrest, he's not commenting. Somber, meanwhile, is adamant that whether public perception is on his client's side, what they're seen doing in this video is legal.
As an attorney, all I care about is, did they break the law or not? I mean, Second Amendment supporters have spoken out against this. I get the emotional argument to it, but let's get these charges dropped, and then we can talk. We can talk from there.
As I said, the department not commenting on it at this point in time because this is going to go through the court system. But I did reach out to the chief by phone and spoke with him and seeing if they wanted to react to any of the things that we heard today from the lawyer. He told me at this point they're going to do their talking in court. In Dearborn, Matthew Smith, 7 Action News.
And today my guest is Jim Mikowski. He's an attorney and corporate counsel to Michigan Gun Owners, Inc. He owns Mikowski Legal Group, and he's a criminal defense attorney and handles civil rights cases with a focus on gun infractions. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, Paul.
So you were involved in a case earlier this year, I think it was February, where two gentlemen first were arrested with a traffic stop, I believe.
Well, they were stopped for a traffic investigation, but no charges or tickets were ever issued at that point. And they were dissatisfied with how the police officer treated them at the scene, so they decided to go to the Dearborn police station and file a complaint against the officer. The gentlemen were open carry advocates, and when they went to the police station, they decided to wear their body armor and their hats and headgear, and one gentleman carried a camera while the other one carried an AK-47.
Okay. Why did they feel they had a...
Well, they were involved. They are both Second Amendment advocates and open carry advocates, and their whole purpose is to advocate for Second Amendment rights and also their First Amendment rights, freedom of expression. And they went there to show that lawful carry of firearms is perfectly legal, and to try to desensitize the public to that. And they decided to walk into the police station carrying their firearms, not waving them about. Just my client, Mr. Baker, had a gun in a holster on his hip, and he had a rifle on a sling. And the other gentleman, Mr. Vreeland, had a camera on a tripod. And that's how they decided to walk in and record what they were doing.
Now, I read in an article that Mr. Vreeland said that they've done that on other occasions to audit, I guess.
Their political philosophy is that government workers and government employees should always obey the law, which is, you know, I can't fault them for that. They have done this before. They had a YouTube video from, I can't remember, 2012 or 2014, where they walked into a police station out in Jackson doing the exact same thing. And there was no issues. The only difference was they were in Jackson versus now they're in Dearborn, and it was cold out, so they both had headgear on. My client was wearing a ski mask, and Mr. Vreeland was wearing a headscarf.
Okay. I'll tell you, the way the police reacted, I mean, if I was them, I would have been petrified. That was a very scary situation.
It was, and you know, one of the police officers involved is actually a personal friend of mine, and I commend them in a way for showing some level of restraint. On the other hand, it was known that Mr. Baker and Mr. Vreeland were in the city of Dearborn. It was known that they were doing a political demonstration. They are no strangers to the city of Dearborn. They've done this many times before. They've never walked into the police station with their firearms, but they've walked around the streets. They've gone into city parks. They've gone to had rallies several times in Dearborn. And on the day in question, the police were aware that Baker and Vreeland were on their way to the police station. So, in a way, I don't blame them for showing restraint because, frankly, carrying a rifle into a police station is a dangerous thing. On the other hand, I think there was an element of not in my house. You know, you might pull that on the streets. You're not going to do that in our police station. So I think that was definitely a factor there.
Okay.
One way or the other.
What were they charged with?
Mr. Baker was originally charged with brandishing a firearm, disturbing the peace, and failure to comply with police orders. Mr. Vreeland was originally charged the same way. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office decided to step in, and they amended the charges, and it used to be a city case with just misdemeanors. Wayne County stepped in and charged them both with felonies. My client, James Baker, was charged with carrying a concealed weapon, brandishing a firearm, and disturbing the peace. Mr. Vreeland was charged with carrying a concealed weapon, disturbing the peace, and resisting and obstructing a police officer, which is a felony also. And I had filed a motion to get the CCW charge against Mr. Baker thrown out, and originally it was thrown out. A judge who was a retired judge who was sitting in place in a vacant seat agreed with me and dismissed the felony charges against Mr. Baker at a pretrial hearing, a pretrial motion hearing, and the following Monday, this was on a Friday, the following Monday, Governor Snyder's new political appointment for that judgeship took over, reversed the judge with 20 plus years of experience, decided that the felony charges should go ahead, and we went to trial, and Mr. Baker was convicted of the one felony. The misdemeanor brandishing and disturbing the peace charges were both, he was both found not guilty on both those charges.
Okay. What was was the gun concealed, or?
So when the police obtained a search warrant after the incident in the police station, they went through the various cameras that the two gentlemen had on them that day, and they found GoPro video footage showing Mr. Baker taking a gun off of his hip and unloading it and placing it in the trunk of the motor vehicle they were using that day, which belonged to Mr. Vreeland. And the video was unclear as to whether or not he placed the gun in a closed case in the trunk. And the only thing that Mr. Baker was convicted of was transporting an unloaded firearm in the trunk of a vehicle without being in a closed case. And in Michigan, that's a 5-year felony.
Wow, that certainly doesn't seem right.
No, regardless of whether or not you think what they did inside the police station was wise, to be convicted on that silliest of technicalities, that's wrong. There's no reason that that gun was, they were doing no harm. That gun in that trunk was certainly not hurting anyone, not threatening anyone while it was in that trunk. And to have the simple fact that if it was in a closed case is no crime versus being in either uncased or in an open case, you know, if the lid's not closed, that means it's a 5-year felony. That's absurd. The Michigan legislature really needs to change the law on transportation of firearms. You know, in Michigan, those of us who've lived in Michigan all of our lives, we think that Michigan has pretty good gun laws and pretty lenient gun laws. In other states, what they did would not be a crime at all. In California, we think of California as having some of the worst gun laws in the country, which is true. But if you're caught with a handgun, a loaded handgun, not even unloaded, a loaded handgun in the operator's compartment of a car, it's a misdemeanor. An unloaded gun in the trunk is a felony in Michigan? That's absurd. And those laws need to be changed, regardless of what happened in the police station. I feel very strongly about that.
I totally agree. Do you think this prosecution was maybe in response to send a message that, you know, obviously they had a history of, you know, being active for gun rights, whether you agree or disagree? You know, they were trying to make statements. They've done this on other occasions. Do you think they were
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was no question that, in my mind, that this was politically motivated. On almost every other occasion, anyone charged with a crime in Wayne County is going to be offered a reduced plea for, you know, plea bargain with a reduced charge, and there won't be any issues. I mean, you might have to write a letter asking for leniency, but they'll reduce the charges and to reach a plea bargain. Mr. Baker was not offered any reduction in charges whatsoever, and that just, it's clearly politically motivated. I believe Mr. Vreeland was offered a reduced charge, but the prosecutor's office was intent on making felons out of both Mr. Baker and Mr. Vreeland. Why? We know why. Because of their political activism. Mm-hmm. They didn't want them to be able to own firearms in the future. So we'll see how this plays out, because Mr. Baker is going to be appealing his conviction, and I am confident that the Michigan Court of Appeals is going to look back to my original argument that the charges should have been dismissed, and they're going to consider those, and I'm very hopeful that they're going to be, that conviction is going to be overturned.
Well, I've talked to a number of people. Now, you're of counsel to the Michigan gun owners. What's their position on what took place?
Well, I'm not a spokesman for the organization, but I can tell you the general sentiment is no one likes what they did. You know, frankly, I think walking into a police station with a rifle across your chest is just asking to be shot. No one likes what they did, but they're going to support the right to do so, and I don't think that anyone thinks that they should have been convicted of a felony.
I agree. I don't think it was the smartest thing, but I don't think they did violated any laws, and, you know, that's...
As I summed up in my closing, it may have been stupid, but stupid isn't illegal.
You know, I was talking about this very case a few days ago, because I had told people you were going to be on my show. And the gentleman, I mean, his response was, "You can't fix stupid." Well, and I told him, I said, well, that may be true, but, you know, stupid is not a crime, and
Well, open people who open carry firearms, it's not a Second Amendment issue, and that's where a lot of people get tripped up. It really isn't. It has nothing, very little to do with gun rights. It's civil rights. It's First Amendment issues, freedom of expression. They are expressing themselves, their political views, by openly carrying a firearm. And that's exactly what they were doing. Was that a bit extreme? Perhaps. Actually, it was definitely a little extreme. But, again, it should not have been illegal. And if the police had no idea that Baker and Vreeland were going to be were in the city, that they were involved in these political activities at any time, and particularly on that day, they had no idea they were coming, I can understand the reaction. I truly can. Evidence seems to indicate that the police knew very well that Baker and Vreeland were in the city doing these political activities, and I think it's pretty clear that they decided to teach them a lesson.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is the Supreme Court has said on numerous occasions that the police have no obligation to protect citizens. So in light of that, I mean, I would think more and more citizens should be, you know, carrying a gun if they want to protect themselves. Absolutely.
I advocate anyone who is a law-abiding gun owner should have the right, have a concealed pistol license, or if the legislature will go ahead with constitutional carry, you know, should be able to carry a firearm. And, you know, we have gun-free zones in Michigan where, you know, even if you have a license to carry a concealed pistol, you're not allowed to carry it in those certain places. And I think the gun-free zones need to be eliminated too, because a sign saying no guns allowed is certainly not going to stop a deranged gunman who wants to go kill people. That's just going to be an open invitation for them to go out, and they'll know that the people inside that building, that school, that hospital, wherever that is, are open to, you know, open. They're subject to an attack, and they have no way to defend themselves.
Absolutely. They're sitting ducks, really.
They're sitting ducks.
Yep. Now, you were also involved in a case that had a lot of publicity locally, and that was the Sean Combs case in Birmingham a few years ago.
Yes, I was. I think it was in 2012 now? It might have been 2011.
I think it was 2012.
In 2012, my client, Sean Combs, he was 18 years old. He had received an M1 Garand, a World War II military rifle, as his 18th birthday present. And he was out with his girlfriend, and he decided to make a political statement and openly carry his M1 Garand up and down South Woodward Avenue in downtown Birmingham. And it was he had a negative police response. He was charged with brandishing a firearm, disturbing the peace, and resisting and obstructing a police officer. And we went to trial. Again, there was no offers to dismiss the case. Frankly, I don't think my client would have taken an offer anyway, because he knew he was within the right. And we did a 2 or 3 day jury trial. And the jury, it was they were all misdemeanors, so it was a local jury from the 48th District Court. And after, I think the jury was out almost over a day, and they decided that they didn't like what Mr. Combs was doing, but again, he was within his rights. Nothing was illegal, and they acquitted him as they should have. And that case got national attention. So it was an interesting case.
Yeah, well, I mean, so many people, you know, aren't used to seeing guns in our everyday life, but it really, I don't think there's anything to fear when you see people, whether they have you know, guns strapped to their side or whatever. You know, usually these are the people you want near you in a troublesome situation, you know.
The people who are openly carrying firearms are not the threat. It's the people who are concealing their firearms who may or may, usually, obviously, most people have concealed carry license, and they're concealed carrying. They're not a threat. But the people who are going to be a threat are not going to be openly carrying their firearms. They're going to be concealing their guns and pulling out their firearms when they feel the time is ripe.
Right.
So if you see someone walking down the street open carrying a handgun, or even a rifle, don't be afraid. They're not the threat. They're making a political statement. They're advocating for your rights to bear arms and to possess firearms. And they're making a political statement. They're not threatening anyone. And if people could understand that, I think it would go a long way to accepting firearms in our society more. Right now, the lines are pretty well drawn. You've got gun advocates and you've got people who are trying to ban guns, and there's no middle ground anymore. Politics is the art of compromise, and I don't see any compromise coming anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, I previously had Rick Ector on the show, and he spoke how really a lot of these gun laws are rooted in racism.
Absolutely. Most of the gun laws in Michigan, especially the more restrictive gun laws, came out of the 1930s when there was an influx of African Americans from the South to support the auto industry, and the white majority in this state, the political majority, decided they cannot allow African Americans to carry firearms or to be armed. So we had knife laws were put on the books. Any laws that could restrict the access of African Americans to firearms or knives or weapons of any kind were put on the books. So yes, I find it quite ironic that some of the most vocal anti-gun people in the Metro Detroit area are African American ministers, and those are the people those laws were put in place to keep their people down.
Right.
And and there are several African American ministers in the area who realize that, and they are Second Amendment supporters, but there's others who aren't. And I understand the scourge of violence in economically deprived communities. I understand there's gun violence, there's just general violence, not even related to firearms. But disarming people is not the way to address the issue. People have to have the right to protect themselves, because as you said earlier, since the 1970s, a Supreme Court case, I can't even remember what the citation for it was, but it was determined by the U.S. Supreme Court that the police do not have the obligation to protect the individual citizens. So who's going to protect us?
Right. And, these gun laws came out of a very important case here in Detroit, which was the Dr. Ossian Sweet case.
Ossian Sweet, yes.
Yes.
Dr. Sweet was an African-American physician. He was living in Detroit, and he moved into a predominantly white neighborhood. And at the time, there were very few African-American physicians, and he was attacked physically, and he used a firearm to defend himself. And he was charged, and eventually, I believe he was acquitted, but the legislature decided we can't have these African Americans with guns, and they decided to restrict it.
Right. And being acquitted at that time by, I believe it was a white jury, I mean, that was, but he had Clarence Darrow defending him, and Frank Murphy was the presiding judge.
It was an extraordinary victory for Clarence Darrow at that time, no question about it. And the legislature decided to react to that victory. So the history of gun control and racism is clear. And I think that message needs to get out to the general public. I don't understand why people support gun control laws, because the history is clear. And we can also see even today how the disparity in how certain gun laws are enforced. I've had clients, African-American clients in the city, they walk down the street and they might have a concealed gun underneath their shirt, and the police will accost them. They'll grab them and grab the gun and demand they prove that they have a CPL. They're guilty until proven innocent. I've had it happen several times. If I were to walk down the street with a gun underneath my coat, a bulge underneath my coat, would they challenge me? I think not. And it's racial profiling, and it happens all the time. And we should not be putting up with it.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I think there's a constant infringement on our rights, more and more trying to take away our rights. And people have to, stand up and take back a lot of the rights that have been taken from them.
I completely agree. There's, like I said earlier, the battle lines are drawn. Everyone, there's no middle ground anymore, and that's unfortunate. So each side is lobbying hard for their respective positions, and I've found that the easiest way to convert someone who's anti-gun into someone who's maybe not a gun lover per se, but accepting, is to take them shooting. I've taken so many people who are very anti-gun out to the range, let them shoot for an hour or two, and it's changed their perspective dramatically. It's an eye-opening thing, and I think anyone a gun owner, if they wish to advance the Second Amendment and to help the whole gun rights community, they should take an anti-gun person to the range and let him shoot. That's the most political help they could possibly do.
I think you're right. In fact, one of my clients took a gentleman out who, was anti-gun, never owned a gun, took him out shooting, and now the gentleman is in love with shooting, enjoys going out and practicing his shooting, and is starting to collect some guns. So
I hear that story more and more, and it's great to hear. That's what we need to do if we want to affect political change in this country. Educate people, and in terms of education. There's another area that we could have a couple shows on this, Paul. Educate our children about firearms. Even if you're virulently anti-gun, even if you hate firearms, you never want to touch them, never want to be around them, the NRA offers a program called Eddie Eagle. Michigan Gun Owners has a program called Project Child Safe, where the organizations will go into schools across the country, across the state, when they're invited, and educate children on safe firearm handling. Don't touch it, stay away, call an adult. Basically to remove the mystery of firearm from children, explain to them at their level that firearms are dangerous, you shouldn't be playing with them. If you find one, summon an adult. And the whole aim of those programs is to educate children so they're safe and they do not find that guns are this big mystery and they're taboo. And wow, let's go get Dad's gun and play with it. And then we end up with a tragedy. I think that any school district in this state, if they care about their children, should invite the organizations in to educate the children. Even if you don't like guns, educate the kids. Make sure that when they do find that gun on the street, when they do, nose around in the bedroom closet, when they do look in the nightstand and they find a gun, that they're not going to shoot themselves or shoot somebody else. Who could possibly be against that?
You're absolutely right. And we're going to have to leave it at that, but I encourage people, if you ever need an attorney, hopefully you won't, involving a gun, to contact Jim Mikowski. And with that, I want to thank you so much, Jim, for taking time to appear on the show.
Thank you for having me on, Paul.
Hey, Sheriff, we have a question about why your office, your intelligence division, is investigating private citizens for criminal investigation that happen to be activists that are overseeing your department. Why would you have your intelligence division investigate private citizens? We have done... Sir, we don't hate anyone. We love freedom and we love American people. And government is out of control. That's why you're seeing such a revolt nationwide. Why can't you just answer, why is Susan Edwards, your intelligence division, investigating private citizens? This should not happen.
Are you here to apply for a job?
Possibly I might be applying for a job, but that's irrelevant to my question. Why would you ask that question?
Well, enjoy the fair.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excuse you?
Excuse me, sir.
So those of you that haven't
Wow.
been on a bike before,
Sheriff's getting a little too pushy. You work for us, Sheriff. Just keep that in mind. At one time we respected you, but not with that type of attitude.
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I found that I had to make a change this ending on my videos, letting you know about the channel and fair use laws, you know, how we can report on other people's reporting and how it's good, how it's bad, etc. But you guys can look it up yourself. It is legal. It's in there. But like I've told you before, that I've been cut off from making money on YouTube for 4 years. It's really weird, bizarre, but they cut the money off, but they said you can keep the channel, and now YouTube makes all the money. And if you get bored, plug it into Social Blade website, and you'll see that they are making a huge amount off the site. Right now it's at 63 million views, 53,000 subscribers, almost 3 million views a month. You know, trying to wake people up, and I make nothing. In fact, I got a customer that's ex-congressman. He said if I could ever find a lawyer, sue YouTube on it. But because this is nuts. 4 hours a day, and to save America. You know, but at the same time, it's worth it. Look at what our founding fathers did. They died for this country. So, but getting back to the money part, this is why I'm redoing the video. Is my dream of everyone giving $1, and it's going to be $53,000 a year, or if they did Patreon, which you know, can be monthly. That is not working. That'd be great if it did. Nothing is perfect. And I appreciate the people that do donate, you know, what they can on PayPal. And there again, I'm letting you guys know that is not much. Is, you know, monthly is, oh my god. So anyways, yes, you cannot live on it. It's very, very, very low amount. But the dollar things, I do appreciate that. But when I first said everybody give $1, that's not working. I'm just letting you guys know it's, yeah, that dream. Everybody gives $1. 53,000 subscribers, it's not working. So yes, if you can give more than that, you know, I appreciate it. Like I said, you know, I'm in a unique situation where, you know, what we're already debt free, and I'm not rich, but with the little business that we have, I am able to do what I am able to do 45 hours a day, you know, letting you guys know what's going on. In 4 years, I've did the whole thing myself. 12,000 videos on there. I literally get emails where people are like, holy crap, I never knew it was this bad. And it is this bad, and it's getting worse every day because we have the internet, we have cell phones, we have cameras everywhere now, and it's just disgusting what's going on. And then, as you guys know too, now we got Trump, we got Jeff Sessions doing a war on drugs, and now he wants to go after the forfeiture laws again. It's just unfreaking real. So if you can give more than that dream of everybody giving $1, yeah, that old video, that's not working. They're not, they're just not. So anyways, if you can give more than that dream is not working. Hardly anybody is giving. There you go. So that's why I'm remaking the video. If you can give more than that, that would be great. And there again, like I said, the Patreon's there. There is some people on there that are starting to give, but there again, it's very, very low. And like I said, I don't want to get rich off of that. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because, you know, it's still so stinking corrupt. It's not even funny. My court case that I'm going to be paying out of my pocket myself with Charlotte County's coming up. They illegally looked me up and then posted all my information on LEOAFFAIRS website. They basically doxed me, however you want to say that. I forget what the word is, and they outed me, man. And that information on that site went out to 500 sheriffs, deputies, people that work at the jail, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, it is very, very scary, but we're going to do a federal case, 1983 case, violating freedom of speech. We have 17 cameras in the house now. We got 2 cameras in the car. I always carry a camera plus a cell phone. A lot of people are highly recommending I get a vest now. If I could, if the wife would let me, I would run for sheriff. We are trying to push the thing nationwide right now, where just to mix it up and to get the topics out there is register to run for sheriff, NPA, no party affiliation, as a write-in, and that is completely free, and you can participate in the elections. And there's a lot of stuff. We got a guy, James McLinnis in Pinellas County, Tampa, who almost won. He experienced the corruption himself. The story is unbelievable. Look him up. It's mind-blowing what they did. It pissed him off. He is very, very smart. He has way more money than I did. He ran for sheriff at the last 3 months last year in 2016 and almost won. He got all of the black vote. And the reason why he did that is because he ran on, I will not bust, we're in Florida, I will not bust anybody for weed anymore unless it's an ungodly huge amount, like pounds. And then he also ran on no more victimless crimes, no more of this freaking road pirate bull crap. And then he was going to cut the budget by 30%. And when you think about that, you can. If you stop the road pirates, you can get rid of a bunch of people. Gone. So, the wife has been saying, yes, I can, yes, I can't. So I don't know. We're trying to find somebody that can do it because I am busy doing this anyways. But, so I'm making a video, like I said, that $1 a month from everybody, you know, for 53,000 subscribers, that is not working. I'm just letting you guys know. Absolutely give way more than $1 a month. If you can, I appreciate anything. By the way, remember too, when you give that, PayPal takes like freaking 15 to 20%, so it's even worse than that. But, and there again, like I'm letting you guys know, it's way, what I get is very, very low. Appreciate it, but it is very, very low. Can't live on it. I'm just, you know, I'm working, and that's what I'm working on. And that court case is going to cost a buttload of money. That's federal court. Just the filing fees and the depositions that we're going to be doing with this corrupt cop. So there's another reason to give. We are going to be doing a deposition with this very corrupt. He was in a drug squad. He is a bad guy. He's on steroids. We heard steroids are rampant here. That's why their attitude is so bad. And we are going to get him on video, and it will be on YouTube. So that case alone is $5,000 just to bring it to court, and that's my money out of my pocket. So there's another reason to give, and give way more than $1 if you can. So keep that in mind. This is the new video, and I see, God, I talk a lot. It's already 7 minutes, but had to make it just to let you know that $1 a month from everybody is not working. They're not doing it. So if you can give more than that, please. So thanks. Keep it up. Share, like, subscribe, tell your friends, send me your videos on corruption, and I'll post it.